Ricardo Eliezer Neftali Reyes Basalto, better known by his pen name Pablo Neruda, was a Chilean politician, diplomat and poet. One of the most influential poets of the 20th century, he began writing poetry at the age of 10 and became a published writer before he had even finished school. His first collection of verse, called Book of Twilights, was published in 1923 when he was just 19 years old. 20 Love Poems and a Song of Despair, his most famous collection of poems, was published the next year. Some of his other collections include Residence on Earth, 100 Love Sonnets, The Stones of Chile, and The Art of Birds. In 1971, Neruda was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature in recognition of his poetic works. The poem Keeping Quiet expresses the poet's thoughts on the ever-moving, fast-paced modern world. It encourages people to stop, look and reflect, detached from all the violence that might be surrounding them. It also highlights the importance of taking time out to understand ourselves and one another. Here is a summary of the poem Keeping Quiet by Pablo Neruda. The poet begins the poem by counting till 12. He hopes that by then everyone will be calm and ready to listen. He then stresses that we should all be still for once. He encourages everyone to remove all boundaries, dissolving them by neither speaking in any language nor by taking any action. He believes that such a moment would be rare, special, and even strange. It would be a moment where there would be no noise or no rush to get anywhere, and where everyone would be united. Such a calm moment would allow fishermen to show kindness to their prey, and salt gatherers to look at their injured hands. That is, people would have the time to reflect on their own actions, empathize with other living beings, and even understand their own pains. The poet then delves into the outcomes of war and wishes that people would realize how they are hurting the world as well as themselves for a false victory. Those who exploit nature for their own benefit do not realize that their actions would eventually lead to a world where everything, including them, would cease to exist. The poet encourages people to use the silence and calm to put aside their differences, and to cleanse their minds while walking in the shade of peace and harmony together as brothers. He clarifies that by asking people to be still, he is not encouraging them to become completely inactive. He does believe in the process of living a life and wants to have nothing to do with death. However, he goes on to admonish the single-minded behavior of moving for the sake of movement. For a change, he asks everyone to do nothing and keep silent. This silence, he hopes, would help people change the unfortunate situation of being too busy to understand themselves or each other. Such a situation only creates conditions that eventually brings everyone closer to death. The poet further asks the reader to be inspired by the earth. Its cycle of autumn and winter, which creates an illusion of death, eventually circles towards spring and summer, when everything is alive once again. Similarly, we too need to nurture life and not destroy it. The poem closes with the poet repeating that he will count to 12, and that the readers should keep quiet while he leaves them alone to ponder on his words. Now, let us examine the poem closely. The predominant theme of the poem is the need for a quiet introspection. The poet wants everyone to stop talking or moving for a moment. He wants everyone to pause life's varied activities and embrace a moment of calm contemplation. The poet asserts that everyone needs to reflect on their past or present actions and look at the world and those living in it, including themselves. Such introspection can help the people of the world empathize with others, abandon conflict and live in peace. An associated theme in the poem is the need to live in peace and harmony. While highlighting the different forms of violence towards nature, the poet contrasts the image by showing how nature too, if left to itself, can learn to heal from within. Within nature, humans have harmed innocent animals, other human beings and even themselves. The poet encourages empathy to help understand each other and furthermore rid the world of several long unnecessary wars. Keeping Quiet is a fine example of a poem that puts across its message in a compelling manner despite using simple language. Neruda uses strong symbolism across the poem to convey his ideas. The number 12 in the first and last stanza is a symbol of time, measuring both hours as well as months. The poet continues with the symbol of the hands of a clock in these lines. People like the hands of a clock are constantly moving and rushing around in a frantic, chaotic manner, living their day-to-day lives. In these lines, the poet draws the image of a fisherman and a salt gatherer who go against their natural instincts. While one is a predator, the other is a prey of his own circumstances. The hurt hand symbolizes the harm humanity is causing to itself with its mindless corrosive activities. The phrase "green wars" reads both as a symbol of the war against nature and as a warning towards the wars that are yet to come. Neruda uses the imagery of fire and gas to further emphasize violence seen in these wars. Another example of symbolism is in these lines. The word brothers symbolizes humanity, while shade refers to a time of peace. Here are some other literary devices used in the poem. In these lines, the earth is personified as a teacher with characteristics that, according to the poet, need to be replicated by humans. The paradoxical phrase "victory with no survivors" highlights the senselessness of war. It seems contradictory, but is actually true. Even when wars are won, there are great losses. There are several examples of repetition in the poem. For instance, the poet repeats the word "let's" to bond with the readers and to show the importance of coming together. Using wars repeatedly helps highlighting the number of times and the different ways people have resorted to violence. The most impactful repetition perhaps is in the first and the last stanza of the poem. They are almost identical. The poet really wants the readers to realize that they are leading meaningless lives. They are just aimless hands moving simply to pass time, nothing more.